Okay, so again, welcome everyone. So today I'm going to actually just briefly talk about gene therapy and its importance and I suppose its benefit to us as a population, and also thinking about the global sustainability and the topic of this particular conferences. So my talk, my sort of presentation is somewhat different to a lot of what I've already heard today, but hopefully I can explain sort of how it all dovetails in and works in with this. So basically, when most people think about gene therapy, they straight away think of things like genetically modified organisms, and all of a sudden the alarm bells start going off and red flags start going up and they start getting concerned because they've heard the media talk about these genetically modified fruits and vegetables that are these huge comically large fruits and vegetables that are going to destroy the world, make us unhealthy and cause problems in society. And that's really what most people see when they think about genetics. They also think about the cloning of Dolly the sheep, and then also the moves that some have made in cloning humans and so on. So this is usually what most of the population think about when they hear this term about gene therapy or genetics. But when we actually look at modifying our genome, modifying our genetics, we've actually been doing it since early man. Prehistoric people, in a very basic way, were already thinking and planning to modify their genetics. So the way we can look at this is that in prehistoric times, it was only the strongest who would survive. So therefore, the strongest person in the tribe became the most attractive mate, and therefore they would then pass on their genes. So they were genetically changing the population to become a stronger population. As we keep fast forwarding through the years, we see that over the years, that different centuries or different times throughout history, there have been different traits in human characteristics that have been known as attractive to the opposite sex. And therefore, it's those traits that have been passed on because they're the ones more favored when it comes to passing on genetic code. So in a very basic way, we have been altering our genetics throughout history. Other examples of this would include things like cross-pollinating plants, taking cuttings or grafts. Are we good to go? Good to go? Oops, we might have some slides soon. Here we go. Okay. Yep, we're good. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, so humankind have actually been changing genetics all the way through. So we fast forward now to around the 1800s. So if we move forward to the 1800s, we've got this person who was a monk, and his name was Gregor Mendel, and he's known in history as the father of modern genetics. And he noticed that different plants, when cross-pollinating these different plants, different characteristics and traits would appear in these plants. So he did a lot of experiments. He published some of his findings, and even students through to this day in doing courses in genetics and biomedical sciences will learn of this particular monk and the early work he did in genetics. And some of the laws that he established are still valid today. But it was as simple as just taking pollen from one type of pea plant and putting it on a different type of pea plant and observing their traits. We also know that there's a garden in the UK where even through to today, every single year they produce quite a number of new variety of roses every year by just cross-pollinating and taking cuttings and so on. So altering genetics is something that's not new to us as humans. It's something that we have been doing for a very long time. So when we hear of this genetic modification of organisms, it's not something that we should think is only something new that we have been doing, or that we're messing with the genome, or we're trying to play God when we're actually changing the genomics of different organisms. So one of the experiments that I know a good friend of mine was doing just down the road, actually just in the buildings next door to us here at QUT, one of the experiments that they were looking at was looking at bananas. Now, bananas are a crop that grows around most countries in the world, have some form or variety of banana. Now, this image that we have here on the slide, it's not that they're genetically modified and that's why they look different, but they're just different varieties of banana that are available around the world in different countries. So bananas are a superfood. As we know, they've got a lot of nutrition, a lot of vitamins, a lot of goodness within a banana. But some of the things that they actually lack are vitamin A, vitamin E, and iron. So this friend of mine who does research just here at QUT, he was looking at genetically modifying these bananas to be able to produce also vitamin A, E, and iron. The advantage of that was to then be able to plant these crops and to distribute them amongst a lot of these third world nations so that these countries would have a complete food group that they could actually eat and have the nutrition that they need to sustain good, healthy life. So this is a sort of a form of gene therapy. It's not changing the human genome to improve health, but it's actually changing the genome of another organism that would then be beneficial to feed the world and to improve the health of those around us. So very important research. It even won awards and grants from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who support a lot of these research to benefit third world countries. So we now fast forward now to modern times. We know a lot more about genetics these days. We know how genes work a little bit more. Still, we don't know everything, but we know a lot more than what we do when Gregor Mendel first discovered these different experiments. So today, when we actually think about gene therapy, a lot of scientists think about how we can alter the human genome to be able to change things, to be able to improve things, to be able to help with health or help with survival of our race. So some of the goals of gene therapy in human gene therapy are to compensate for abnormal genes. So every single one of us have different genes in our body that aren't quite performing the way they're supposed to. So a goal of gene therapy is to fix this problem, to compensate for these abnormal genes. Other things are to make beneficial proteins within us. So we can change our genome to secrete or to increase the production of certain proteins that might help improve our health. An example of that would be what this friend of mine's doing to the bananas, trying to increase production of vitamin A, E, and iron. So we can produce beneficial proteins for us. Other things that we can do as well is rectify mutations. So every single one of us in our genes somewhere, there are mutations. Most of them don't cause a problem, but there are a few that will cause problems. Some of the examples of this would be to cause cancer. So by correcting these mutations, we may be able to fight off certain diseases like cancer and be able to get to a stage where we have built into our genome the ability to actually not develop cancer and to overcome cancer. So basically, the whole goal, the whole aim of gene therapy is to eventually improve our own health. Now, as I said earlier, a lot of people, when they think about genetics, they think about how terrible it is to the environment. And if these things get into the environment, it's going to cause havoc in the world. Just to ease everyone's mind, for things like this, to be able to change a human genome or the plants that we were talking about before, here in most countries, there are quite stringent guidelines that are to be followed when it comes to genetic modification of organisms. Here in Australia, there are ethics committees, there's different research protocols we have to go through in order to be able to do the research. Then when it comes to actually inserting these into living organisms, first of all, animal ethics, and then eventually human trials and ethics. So all the way through, there is this checks and balances already in place to prevent these things from actually causing any problems. So as I said, moving forward towards this more global sustainability, this ability to be able to help improve the earth, then one of the things that we shouldn't be scared about is the gene therapy and being able to alter our genes to be able to improve things. We shouldn't be scared. We should open ourselves up to the possibility that we can do this and understand that there are lots of different checkpoints along the way so that it is safe and beneficial to us all. Thank you.